Hey everyone, Tankenstein here, and welcome to Stock to Spaded. In this episode, I'll be showcasing the 120S, otherwise known as the MBT-2000. This is a currently ranked 7 battle rating 10.0 main battle tank that sits in the American Ground Forces tech tree just after the M60A3 TTS. This vehicle is essentially a Tankenstein, if you will, being a mix between an M60 hull and an M1A1 turret and cannon, thus making this thing perfect to be the mascot of my channel. It features devastatingly powerful M1A1 APF SDS with nearly 600mm of armor pen, again all the way down at 10.0, although devastatingly terrible power to weight ratio with only 750 horsepower against a 56.2 ton mass. Now if you guys don't know, what I like to do in Stock to Spaded is bring these through at least 3 matches, the first match being fully stock, second match being about halfway spaded, and the third match being fully spaded, so you can see exactly how this vehicle performs, again fully stock, then about halfway spaded, and then fully spaded, so that you know whether or not you want to purchase this thing and even grind it all the way through, and so that you can see exactly what the process is like. Now being that this is a test drive, Gaijin has already unlocked all the modifications for me, so what I'll be doing is retroactively removing the modifications, again to bring myself to stock, and then adding about half of them back for halfway spaded, and so forth. Now that being said, if you guys don't mind, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, but without further ado, let's take out my mascot into a few battles. Let's get into it. So here we are fully stocked with the 120S, and just one thing to note here because it's actually really important. Typically all of my matches I record both my audio and gameplay simultaneously. This is one of those very few exceptions where I cannot do that because I need absolutely all of the focus possible when playing this vehicle. The 120S is almost without a doubt the worst stock vehicle I've played in War Thunder, at least at this high of a BR. It is dreadful, and so much of it has to come down to its engine power. This thing, fully stock, has 663 horsepower versus 56.2 tons of mass. That is ridiculous, and it means that this vehicle really cannot perform a whole lot of different things. Like, you're talking, this vehicle legitimately, I'm not just saying this to sound funny or be hyperbolic, this thing legitimately is about as fast as an early World War II heavy tank. It is atrocious, and you might be saying to yourself, well, it's got a 48 km/h top speed, how can that be? Well, the thing is, I've had it numerous times when on city maps I've gone downhill, hit about that 48, and my horsepower cannot maintain the 48 km/h top speed. Typically, you're going like 25 to like low 30s with this thing. Again, kilometers per hour. It is absolutely dreadful how slow this thing is. And then, of course, you have to mix in a few other things as well, such as the huge turret ring weak spot, which is just absolutely gigantic. This has got to be one of the biggest turret ring weak spots in the entire game. I'm not even, again, being hyperbolic here. It is that big. I mean, it's startling how big it is. But it doesn't really matter so much because the entire hull lacks composite armor, lacks ERA. Despite the fact that the 9.0 BR TTS variant of the M60 has ERA, this does not. And so you're at a huge disadvantage via armor and survivability right off the bat with this thing. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, Tankenstein, the turret has M60A1 levels of armor. That's really good. Who's going to shoot at the turret when they have the entirety of the hull and the weak spot of the turret ring to shoot at? I mean, more often than not, when I get hit, if I don't die immediately, I get the turret ring disabled. I mean, it's legitimately that bad. The turret ring damage on this thing is atrocious. If you somehow survive, you're probably not going to have a turret ring. It's just so bad. So again, that's why I really didn't feel like I could record the audio live for the fully stock match. I'll try to do that for the halfway spaded match. To be fair, I do think that this is going to get a lot better halfway spaded and fully spaded, but fully stock, it is mind-bogglingly atrocious. And you might be also asking to yourself, well, what about the armament? The armament is no better. It is just so bad because the Heat FS at this BR, if you have Heat FS, it sucks. It just outright sucks. So hopefully, again, halfway spaded, I'd imagine it's going to be a little bit better. We're going to have slightly better power to weight ratio. Of course, we're going to have APF SDS. I'm going to equip the laser rangefinder and probably night vision as well, or the thermals rather, which I believe are Gen 2 on this. So hopefully this thing is a lot better halfway spaded, but we'll have to wait and see. So that being said, let's get into the halfway spaded match, see what we could do. But again, thus far, absolute nightmare of a tank to grind when it's fully stock. But again, you have really, really powerful turret armor and an excellent cannon at 10.0 BR. It's just the rest of the tank kind of sucks. Let's get into the halfway spaded match. So here we are about halfway spaded with the 120S, and well, it's still very slow. Now bear in mind, that's just radiator damage, so it's not actually slowing me down at all. But this vehicle is still very much a slow vehicle, unfortunately. Oh, thank goodness, he was about to wipe me off the face of the earth. Now, one of the great things with this vehicle... Oh, I'm getting lucky here. Wowie kazowie. I think we have someone else here. Let's see, can I get myself another kill? I'm gonna go around here so that so I don't die. But this vehicle, I mean, bear in mind, you know, for all the misgivings it still has, if you're expert crewed, around a 5-second reload. Like, I think it's like 5.2, 5.3 seconds. That's great. We have another tank. And there we go. Lucky me. Oh yeah, also I got ammo racked. But this thing has blowout panels, so I survived that. So, this thing has a lot of problems with it, but at the same time, you know, I got ammo racked, I survived, and then I went on to go have like another kill or two. And now I can go back to base so I can peacefully regain ammunition. And it's like, how many vehicles in War Thunder at 10.0 BR are going to be able to do that? The answer is not many. And so, even though this thing is freaking hella slow, it is ridiculously weak in some areas. Like, you know, literally, with its armor, it still has a few decent things. And like I kind of, you know, like I had said, fully stock, I knew this thing would suck. Genuinely. Like, I was like, okay, it's got heat FS, it's got like an 11, 12 horsepower per ton power to weight ratio, it's got nothing good, and so it's gonna suck. But halfway spaded, you have the heat FS. I am using the M829, bear in mind. You have Gen 2 thermals, which are very nice, and it's just overall not too terrible. And I do also have the engine upgrade, which isn't bad. You know, I mean, like, you're not getting a ton of extra power with this thing in terms of engine power, but it's enough to make some level of a difference. You know, I mean, now you can actually maintain your top speed at 48, which is, again, nice. It's an upgrade. Okay, we have an MBT. We had an MBT right there, went right through. If that was the heat FS, wouldn't have done jack diddly poop. And bear in mind, this is my first match where I've equipped this thing out to be halfway spaded, right? Like, I'm not trying to record, and this is all live audio, mind you. Like I said, that I like to do typically, but I just didn't feel like I could do because I had to focus so much. This is actually like live audio, so it's just like, look at this, look at this, like night and day. Fully stocked, this thing is atrocious. Halfway spaded, I've gotten 5 kills and an assist. Probably should have had a base cap too, but I decided to get a kill rather than the base cap. And it's just like, that's all you need to know. Night and day. You equip this thing with thermals, a laser rangefinder, an APF SDS. Doesn't matter if it's the top tier, because it's not. The top level APF SDS on this thing has close to 600 millimeters of armor pen. And it's like, it's night and day. This thing becomes so much better. Now, is it a good tank? I don't think so. I think I've gotten very lucky with a lot of those encounters. Like, I probably should have died right there. I've got no doubt I should have died right there. In fact, I don't know why I didn't die. And so, and also, we're facing a team that looks like they crumbled. So on one hand, it's like, yes, I'm impressed by how much better this thing feels, but it's kind of like taking, you know, the 2007 Patriots and putting them up against, like, one of the, like, winless Browns teams. You know, absolutely, like, it's just going to crush them. You know, not saying that the enemy team is made up of bad players, because I don't think it is. But, you know, sometimes teams don't have good chemistry. I mean, you could put the best players in the world on teams that don't have good chemistry, and they might not do all that well. So, that being said, let's get into the fully spaded match. I mean, again, one match, halfway spaded, and I was able to get 6 kills, an assist, and probably, again, should have had a base cap. So, just absolutely wild. That said, let's get into the fully spaded match. So here we are finally, fully spaded with the 120S, and I can tell you a few things about this. It's still very slow. You know, like, I have a stock to spaded on the M60 TTS, and that has a better horsepower per ton power to weight ratio, and that is one full BR, at least currently, one full BR lower than this. And so, this thing is still very slow, don't get me wrong. But at least it's not as slow as it was fully stock. And of course, you can say that with any vehicle, but it felt like it was like critical mass. It was just awful. It was like almost unplayable how slow it was fully stock. And so I feel like it's a lot better of a vehicle right now, just because of that mobility. But then you also have other things as well, like, of course, the enhanced armor, or the armament rather, insofar as the APF SDS that you have. You have the improved, yes, T80UD. Went right through. Look at that. Perfect shot. Wouldn't have been able to do that with Heat FS. The turret reverse is a bit better. Not that, so the turret reverse was actually one of the bright spots on this vehicle, I feel like I could say. Genuinely, it was actually a pretty good thing with this. And so, I think it's something like 32 to 40 degrees per second, give or take, depending on your crew skill. So it's really actually pretty good. But otherwise, I mean, you know, you have Gen 2 thermals, you have a powerful cannon, you have all these things that, like, the standard M1 Abrams at around this BR, you know, like the 105s, they are weaker than this when it comes to offensive armament. Ooh, we have an enemy. Had an enemy. And so this is also my first fully spaded match with this thing. So, like, just think about that. This thing is night and day. Substantially better than when it was fully stock. It's just so incredibly improved. And I think one of the big things with this vehicle, too, is being that it's fully spaded, I feel like one of the big things with this vehicle is, like, when I was fully stock, there were a few vehicles that I felt like needed the extra parts more than this, like the, you know, in order to repair more than this. And a big part of it was because I was being completely annihilated. Like, my turret ring was just dying like no one's business. And so with this vehicle, I don't nearly have that same problem. It's actually quite nice. Oh, there it is. Turret ring has been shot, just to kind of prove you guys that that does happen. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's worth the price of admission in and of itself. Holy guacamole. Wow. Lucky hit, huh? Through the smoke, no turret ring. Boom. So, in all, I mean, yes, this vehicle is still very slow, still has this atrociously huge turret ring weak spot that will, like, I mean, that's going to be probably one of the biggest things that gets you killed more often than not. It's, you know, again, very slow, has no whole armor that really matters all that much outside of, like, a glancing autocannon shot. You have no ERA. Turret armor is great, but how many people are actually going to hit your turret? I really don't know if I remember anybody actually hitting my turret during the entire time that I've been recording this. And again, you can hold down with this vehicle, don't get me wrong, and that is an option. But how many matches, like, how many matches are you going to have where that is an option? I mean, like, look at this map. What are your hold down opportunities looking like on this map? They're nil. They don't exist. So with that being said, you know, and I may be the beneficiary of two really, really good teams versus two mediocre teams over, like, the last few matches, so bear that in mind as well. I don't think that this vehicle is at all perfect. It is one of the most flawed high-tier vehicles in-game by its nature. Initially, I was going to forsake this vehicle as my mascot, but I still think it's reasonable at this point, just because once you get it fully spaded, it's actually pretty good, or even halfway spaded, it's definitely reasonably good. So, do I like this vehicle? For the most part, yes. you're going to have a hell of a bad time, most likely, if it's anything like what happened to me when you're fully stock. This thing is just not good when it's fully stock. I hated it. It was one of the worst experiences I've had using a stock vehicle in War Thunder. Heat FS plus no armor at this BR, especially when you're dealing with... Is this him? Ah, and there we go. Stupid me. So I'm going to go respawn just so we can do whatever, but 5 kills, not too bad. But again, I think that this match is pretty much over. And again, this is also live recorded, so again, that first match, the first, fully stock thing, that was the exception, not the norm to these videos. Typically, I do it all live. And this is all, like, actual gameplay, so you guys can get the most honest view of these vehicles. But again, when you combine slow speed and, like, no hull armor at this BR, it's a recipe for disaster. So do I think that this vehicle is good? Well, I think it's an okay meme tank. It depends on how you play. Like, if you're an offensive-minded player like I am, probably not. This is probably not the best vehicle for you. Just because, like, at this BR, this is an awesome sniper. You're getting, like, 600 millimeters of armor pen. You have Gen 2 thermals. You have good optics. Gunner's optics. You don't have Commander's optics, by the way. And this thing is slow. So, like, if you can snipe with this thing, put it in a hold-down position, force people to hit that turret, this thing can be great. And if you're that type of player, it's great. But if you're the type of player like me that likes to treat every tank like a freaking light tank, this might not be for you. Genuinely. I mean, it's a great tank in some ways, and it's a terrible tank in other ways, and it's never going to be changed unless it perhaps gets like that 1,000 horsepower prototype engine that they were thinking about putting into this thing. So who knows what the future brings. But that said, thanks so much for watching. If you don't mind, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. But either way, thanks again. I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.